Hey there, Claire Chancellor here, sharing more of Elevate and Evolve. We're now going to look at step 2 to notice what you're tolerating. Within this chapter, we're going to focus on exactly that, what you're tolerating and where are you shooting yourself. For many clients, this specific question, what are you tolerating, is an absolute deal breaker. It's the best thing to be asked when you're on that quest to manifest what you want. Why? Because this question gets you to look at the problems of the past, what you've been ignoring, so that when you have that conscious awareness and be present with what needs to change, suddenly that tension of feeling stuck makes you feel like you're proactive. And in fact, you are proactive, that now you have that conscious awareness, you have the choice to make a change. For the client that I'm thinking of who said, oh my gosh, that question was so good, she was able to recognize how much she had. Oh, she was getting quite tense in her relationships. She was taking on board and assuming lots and lots of different tasks, feeling very burdened, obligated, weighed down by the responsibilities of the household, the family, friendships. And then when she recognized, okay, wow, where am I shooting myself? What am I tolerating? It created more space for honest conversation. It created more space for the change that meant that herself and her family had that energy, that refreshing freedom to be able to clear everything that was making them feel stale and stuck to create that sanctuary again. And the interesting thing was that when she took action to what she'd been tolerating, this desire that she previously had to go traveling, it was such a need, wasn't so important because she wasn't escaping what she was tolerating. She wasn't looking for that hotel room that was clean and fresh and going to restaurants where things or meals were cooked for her. When she realized what she'd been tolerating at home and made those changes, home felt like a holiday. And then, of course, the travel becomes a choice and something that is the thing that lights them up instead of the destination to escape problems. So this particular chapter is very, very, very important. And again, I've worked with clients where they're having money problems, burnout problems. They go through this inventory of what are they tolerating, and things are now obvious to them that need to be changed. So this is what we're going to look at in chapter 2. What are you tolerating? Be aware that you are manifesting all the time, you and your reality, how your childhood story has become outgrown, clearing space for what you want, recognize how you're shooting yourself, and a bit of a questionnaire there to release where you're shooting yourself. So there's a lot jam-packed into question 2 or chapter 2. Let's go into it a little bit deeper. Now, as I said from chapter 1, you are manifesting all the time. Manifesting isn't the thing at the end of the day with your gratitude journaling or the 10-minute meditation or being present at 1 o'clock, 111. You are radiating a particular energy, a frequency all the time. And that energy that you're radiating is putting feedback out into the universe, out into your world, almost like being that, almost like that sunshine, right? It's sort of like you're out there shining your light, and what you get back will determine on the energy that you're putting out there. So maybe the sunshine metaphor doesn't work so much. Maybe you're more like that garden. It's like, yeah, how much are you radiating out that you need water, you need sunlight because you're in the dark, compared to those who allow themselves to absolutely bloom and the conditions are right, the environment's right, everything that they're putting out into the world is mirrored back to them. So if you are recognizing that you're manifesting all the time, you can also start to recognize, again, what are you tolerating? And the thoughts like, why can't I get ahead? What's wrong with me? I'm not enough. These are the types of limitations that are going to keep you in the dark from having what you want. And when you focused on those particular problems, then you are going to attract in more of that heavy energy. And we see this when somebody is like, oh gosh, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get ahead? And then their guts are starting to churn and their health is starting to decline. And then their relationships start to decline because they're not so present. The loneliness kicks in, the poverty, like the ripple effect. So it's really important to be aware that you are manifesting all the time. Here with Elevate and Evolve, it's not just about, oh, I want the fancy, pretty car. It's also recognizing why you have the crap car that you don't want. Now, the childhood story we outgrow. One of the biggest reasons why people stay stuck is the old conditioning disguised as goodness. We're taught to being good earns reward, be kind, be generous, be selfless, use your good manners. And yes, this does create that sense of responsibility in a child. However, it is woven really deep within the core of who we are. Like that Santa story, that if you're really, really good, then you're going to be rewarded. And if you're naughty, you're going to be on the naughty list. You won't get Santa's gifts. You'll be rejected. There'll be coal in your stocking. And so we overextend ourselves to be good, to seek validation, to wait for permission, to tolerate instead of ask. Recently, I heard on a podcast somebody talking about knowing that a family member had actually been not a very good character. And yet the parents wanted to have that good facade, have good manners, say thank you to this person, be nice to this person, instead of teaching their children to trust their intuition, that everything that they're detecting within themselves, that person is someone I should stay away from. They get this training that they have to put on a mask, fake, perform, get closer, say thank you. And it starts to teach that little one that when they're right, they're wrong. And this puts them on that path of doubt. So when we're looking at manifesting, if you have this incongruence where it's like, oh, am I right? Am I wrong? I'm confused. I need good manners. I should help. I need to tolerate that person's negative behavior. They're throwing crap in my direction. Oh, but I need to have good manners. Then you are on the quest to continue to manifest more of that heaviness. Because the second questioning, doubting yourself is shrinking your energy, putting you into a spin, and not putting you on the path to have what you want. The universe will not respond to how hard you work. It will not respond to how good you are. It will respond to how you value yourself, to how you value your self-worth, and that it is okay to shift and change your position if you are in an environment that doesn't support your self-worth, that doesn't support your growth. You are okay to put yourself first in situations that are quite heavy and dark so that you can be out in the light, that you can brighten up instead of being dim. And again, this is where we're moving towards with manifesting, to dial up your self-worth, because you are manifesting all the time. Before we go into deeper themes of what's keeping you stuck, let's begin with everyday tasks, those small things that you're tolerating that are taking up space for what you really, really want. We need to keep in mind with this particular training and program that we are all starting from a unique place. Some people, when they start this manifesting journey, they've been through absolute hell and back. Life has been really rough with them. And so their list of what they're tolerating may be very, very long compared to somebody who has been quite deliberate in their surroundings and what they're doing and who they spend time with. Their list may be quite small. it's still well and truly worth doing this particular step. And I do remember when I was working with a client who was having money troubles to say, what are you tolerating? I want you to think of where you're tolerating the uncomfortable chair at work, the uncomfortable light in your office, the pinching shoes, the way that the carpet is stained. Like, think of everything that you're tolerating, the messy car, the unpaid bills, the list of emails. What are you tolerating? And it was interesting from this particular client that once she recognized, I do not feel comfortable in my office. The chair is uncomfortable, I'm cold, all of the things. Was there any wonder why she felt uncomfortable stepping into her business to generate money? So again, we have to look at what are we tolerating? I've got here in the manual, like a moldy sandwich forgotten at the bottom of your expensive handbag. When you add beautiful things to that bag, I was like, oh no, I'm not going to put my, $40 lipstick in the moldy handbag there. Like, what am I doing? It's like, it just festers in all directions. So here we need to create space for what you want, to be able to dial up your self-worth, to say, I am ready to receive. I'm no longer available for depletion, for takers. I'm here to clear my space so I feel good to breathe, expand my energy, to claim up the space that I deserve. It's very important, this step. This is where I invite you to put a pocket of time aside to have a look at what you're tolerating. Have a look at where your energy gets drained, what's not okay with you. This can be, again, the things like the someday tasks, the cluttered drawer, the shoes that pinch, the car that needs to be serviced, everything there that's exhausting. You kind of roll your eyes, oh God, I have to do that again. Thinking of another client was like, I live in a beautiful home, Claire, but when I pull into my driveway, when I open the garage, I am greeted with just a tidal wave of mess and clutter. Like, the garage is where we throw all of the someday tasks. And yet it's the first point of me coming home to my sanctuary, coming home to myself. And so, yeah, she absolutely needs to get her hubby on board, or to get in cleaners, organizers, get in there herself and move those things so that coming home feels incredibly refreshing. So here we are again. I invite you to look around your home, your work, your relationships, and what are you accepting that's less than what you truly want? Some people will really enjoy writing this list. It'll be like the release of rage. And like, let me tell you, this is what I'm tolerating. And then some people actually just need to span this over a few days because it can bring up some vulnerabilities. Either way, let's get it out of your unconscious mind, out of your body, out of your nervous system, and into conscious awareness so that you can do something about it. There is a self-reflection questionnaire here. When you think about that list that you've written, what is the biggest thing that you're tolerating? How long have you been tolerating this for? What discomfort are you trying to avoid by tolerating? Now, this one's an interesting question. It's asking you to go deeper here, because sometimes people will tolerate the messy garage because they don't want to ask their husband for help. Oh gosh, he works so hard, and gosh, who am I to ask? And I'm happy with the bare minimum. What is it that you're trying to avoid? And this will trigger off some beliefs from childhood about, being unsafe to ask for what you want, or remembering right to the core of who you are that, people would either dismiss what you needed growing up. People may have grunted and made it worse by blaming you that they now have to do things. So this one is an interesting question. What discomfort are you trying to avoid by tolerating? What would change if you stopped tolerating and asked for what you need and what you want? So if you did, approach that person, with your values of kindness and the intentional piece here of coming together to enhance the relationship, to take off the mask, to put your needs on the table, what would change if the other person would meet you where you're at? And I've seen some tremendous changes for people when they've gone through this question here, is the person or their husband is like, oh, wow, I actually had no idea how much of the workload and the mental load you were doing. You know, give me half of that list. I'm happy to go through it. So it's well worth taking your time on this question. And then now that you've gone through, what are you tolerating? What is a small act that you can do for yourself to put your needs first? You put in a boundary or a request, a refusal or a pause. So I'm thinking about today, in fact, my 15-year-old saying, hey, Mum, can you pick me up from school? And I was like, I can pick you up from school later. It's sunny. It's fine. Or you could walk home at the designated 3 o'clock kind of time. And it was like, there was this boundary that I put in that it wasn't just going to happen like she clicks her fingers and I'm going to be there. Couldn't make that happen. So I wasn't going to should myself and change my plans to meet her immediate request, put my needs first. I had other things I needed to do. And I was like, okay, I can meet you where you're at, but at a different time. And Miss Independent, she's gone and hung out with friends anyway. And who knows when she'll be home? Hopefully before dinner. I joke, but she'll be home any minute. Now, this leads into the next piece. Your words shape your physiology, your attitude, how you shows up with your energy. And I want you to consider this. Feel it in your body as I say this. I should help my neighbor on Monday. And notice how your body may brace or tighten or feel pressure with that of like, I should help my neighbor on Monday. And then with a simple change in word of I could help my neighbor on Monday, I could help my neighbor on Monday, you may notice that there's a softening, more spaciousness. And to me, this is that ultimate piece of freedom where you have the freedom to choose. Should carries that tension, that obligation, some hidden guilt. Could invites choice, freedom, and emotional ease. So many shoulds are inherited, as I said, like from childhood, inherited, passed down through culture, family, of you should have good manners, you should be kind, you should do these things. And it can get, especially people pleasing women, codependent people, you should be helping, you should be giving, you should be doing more. It keeps them in a spiral where childhood had taught them to almost like scan the energy before they walk into the room to detect how everybody else was. And then as a child, they would adjust themselves to keep the peace. So they would tend to mum, or they would move their siblings away from dad who's stressed, or they would make the house quiet, or they would go and clean. They should, keep everything at peace. And then when they grow up and they're still playing out all of this, they end up being in relationships with takers who take advantage of their good nature and never actually ask them what they need because they look like they're enjoying it or that it's just part of their joy, part of who they are. And in reality, if someone had paused and said, you know what, leave that, I will help, then the people pleaser in that scenario, the empath, wouldn't know what to do with it because they're so accustomed to scanning the room, who's tense, what can I do, feeling guilty if they don't. Think about the childhood punishment or the consequences if they didn't do that, if they didn't keep the peace growing up. Maybe they were blamed, maybe they were rejected, isolated if they didn't anticipate everybody's needs. So it's so innate in them. And this is one of the most profound ways you can turn this around by noticing when you immediately should yourself instead of changing it to could. Client in Elevate and Evolve noticed that on the Saturday morning, oh, I should be working on my business. We'd just gone through this particular class and she realized, no, I actually could work on my business, or I could go out for breakfast with my husband, have that space, have that time, have that nurturing, nourishing conversations with him, charge my battery up, and then I could work on my business. So it's not taking away what needs to be done. However, it is training your nervous system that there is going to be that self-care and listening to your needs and bringing in the options so that you can have that agreement with people. So when that pressure, that guilt, that obligation, when that takes over and the pressure that builds in the system, we need to be able to have tools in the toolkit to be able to bring that calmness and that clarity back, to be able to regulate your nervous system, to come back to peace. And as I said, one of the best ways to do that is to stop shooting yourself and come back to the choice of what you could do and putting those options on the table. This particular process here, if you want to print it, want to go through it, it will start to teach you what your patterns are. Now, I'll be absolutely transparent with you. I had questioned whether or not to include this because I was wondering if it was, well, too heavy for people to have that self-awareness, because so many times when people have been fighting a pattern or trying to get away from a pain point, trying to get away from what triggers them, they have this way of putting blinders on and they don't want to look at it. Even in coaching, it's like they'll find a way to distract and take the focus off the actual problem. So this one, you may feel like you need to dedicate some focus to this to start to teach yourself the patterns of where you're shooting yourself. So this resource is for those moments when you do feel stuck in pressure, guilt, obligation, using those should language. And what you'll find is if you get familiar with these questions, you'll be able to just check in with yourself, that self-awareness. Even when you're driving, you won't need to do this as a sit-down process. But we all have to start somewhere, right? So a common pressure of somebody asking you to do the thing, to help them move house, to care for them, whatever it is, and you feel that tension of like, oh gosh, like, it's my grandfather, I really should be there. And then notice inside, is there a pattern here of like obligation, perfectionism, proving I'm a good granddaughter to be there, obligating, oh gosh, I should be there. What will the family think? I need to make sure I'm dressed perfectly so that I'm worthy, all of those things. And if you notice, there's a pattern there with, okay, somebody's asked me to be there or do something, and you feel that pressure. It's like, actually, what could I change it to? Instead of I must, I should, I can't stop now. What's that go-to kind of obligation statement that I should stop what I'm doing and help? Like, I must be available because, like, I can't rest until I do this thing for somebody else. You want to start to be aware of this energy that you're putting in, making the other person's needs more important than your own. And then checking in, because this is going to be the spiral that sets off some limiting emotions here, like the guilt if you don't do it, the fear of the consequence, the shame of not being enough, the anxiety of, gosh, what will people think in the future? There's judgment here, the burden by responsibility that may not be yours, or is it something else? Noticing that, again, as we've said earlier, if you change your language from shooting yourself to I could, notice what choice starts to open up. So when you feel like you are trapped, that I have no choice, the body's going to get tense. It's going to brace. It's going to shorten your breath. It's going to generate the adrenaline, the stress, And here we go. We're off on a journey of fatigue and burnout and brain fog. So being real with yourself, is it true that you should help, or is it true that you have the option to help? What other options do you have here about asking for extra help or choosing something different? And then finally here, being able to stop the loops and the resentment and recognizing what's one small choice you can make today that feels true to you, that gets you out of the hustle, out off the path of obligation. What can you do to soften your breath, to slow your heart rate, to be more present with yourself before you're guilted or shamed into a reactive response to answer somebody else's request? You may find yourself just needing that distance, that gap, that boundary. And the boundary can often just be that moment to pause, to check in. What do you really need? What would be the most kindest thing that you can do for yourself? And what's one small choice that you can make? Because when you're making those choices from kindness, from good values, then it's also respecting the other person that you're there for a choice, not resenting every minute of being in their company. So making sure that you bring in the knowing that you have that choice. Once you've gone through something like that questionnaire, or being triggered into shooting yourself, or the questionnaire about tolerating, once you've identified all of that, you need to make sure you do something to bring that self-worth to feel good. And in the manual, you'll see a list there of go get a massage or dance your troubles away, have a bath, go for a coffee, get your crystals out, spray out the lavender to freshen your mind, go read a book or listen to a podcast, buy yourself some flowers, bake, do art, be out in nature, move your body, don't move your body, go do nothing. What is one thing that resonates with you to be able to just give yourself that moment to breathe and recharge you? Recently, for me, I had this pocket of time after doing an enormous amount of work where I just wanted to tend to my plants in my house. So they needed some attention, and I wanted to like shift where they were within the sunlight and give them fertilizer and all of the good things they needed. That was my version of like turning the world off and to focus inward and what brightens my energy. But of course, not everybody's into that, their home plants. So the list is here for you, but make sure you personalize it to what you need. So here we are at the end of chapter 2, or step 2, I should say. And the next chapter, we're going to actually go really deep and have a look at what is keeping you stuck. Oh. Often the solution in recognizing the problem is 80% of the problem solved. Because once you know how the problem is being formed, then you have the ability to make a change and to do something different. And in all good coaches, all good healing, all good manifesting, to have a look at how the problem is structured gives you the roadmap on structuring the solution out of that problem. So I look forward to speaking to you in that next chapter.